Have you ever asked yourself, honestly, uncomfortably asked yourself, whether the way you've been trying to get closer to this person has actually been the very reason they keep pulling away? Sit with that for a second before you answer, because I spent a long time refusing to answer it. I kept focusing on their behaviour, their coldness, their silence, that thing they do where they're warm one week and completely unreachable the next. I kept making it about them, and honestly, I think a lot of you are doing the exact same thing right now. You're asking, how do I make them call? How do I make them text? How do I become the person they finally choose, consistently for once? And I want to give you what you came here for. I really do. But first, I have to show you something that most content about avoidant attachment just skips. Because if you miss this part, nothing else I tell you will actually work. Not in the way you need it to. Here's what's actually going on underneath all of it. There's real science behind why an avoidant person reaches out, why they call, why they suddenly, after weeks of nothing, send that text at 10 p.m. like, "Hey, how are you?" as if no time passed at all. And it has very little to do with anything you did or said on the surface. It goes way deeper than that. It lives in the nervous system. In patterns laid down so early in life that most avoidant people have zero conscious memory of learning them. Avoidant attachment is a relational pattern where people downplay their emotional needs and reject closeness to protect their independence. And it's learned in childhood. It doesn't just fade, it follows them into adulthood as discomfort with intimacy, difficulty being vulnerable, and this pull to detach the moment things feel too close. That right there is the foundation of everything I'm about to tell you. Think about what that actually means. This person you love, the one who goes quiet on you, who reads your message and waits 3 hours to respond with something brief and flat. They're not doing that because you aren't enough. They're doing it because their nervous system was wired years before they ever met you to treat closeness as danger, to experience someone wanting them deeply as a threat, not a gift, a threat. Early experiences literally shape the neural pathways. The amygdala, the brain's alarm system, gets triggered by intimacy. And so the attachment needs get suppressed, automatically. And when I first really understood that, not just intellectually, but in my body, I stopped taking the distance personally. Not because it doesn't hurt, it does. But I finally saw it for what it is. A reflex. An ancient, deeply grooved reflex that fires before the conscious mind even has a chance to respond. Here's where it gets interesting and uncomfortable if you've been chasing. Avoidant people use what researchers call deactivating strategies, basically patterns of thought and behavior that suppress emotional experience to avoid intimacy. They don't choose to do this the way you choose what to wear. It happens the way a knee jerks when a doctor taps it. Automatic, below conscious thought. So when you sent that heartfelt message, when you asked where things were going, when you told them how much they mean to you, their nervous system wasn't hearing love. It was hearing alarm. The more you chase closeness, the more suffocated they feel, the more they pull back. I know that's painful to read. I want you to let it land anyway. Because here's the thing nobody actually talks about when they explain this cycle. The problem isn't that you love too much. The problem is the direction of the energy. You've been pouring all of it toward them, and every drop moving in their direction activates the exact reflex you're trying to dissolve. Think about that for a second. You've been working so hard to connect, and that effort, that genuine, loving effort, has been landing as pressure in their nervous system. Not because you're wrong to want connection. You're not. But because the system they're running on doesn't know how to receive it without bracing. And here's the part that gets me. A lot of avoidant people don't even consciously notice the shutdown happening. They're not thinking, I'm scared of this intimacy, so I'm withdrawing. They just suddenly want to check their phone. They feel vaguely annoyed. They get this sense that something about the relationship feels off. A pull toward being alone. They're not manufacturing distance to punish you. Their body's just doing what it learned to do, and the more you chase, the louder that reflex gets. So what actually quiets it? This is where most people get it completely wrong. They think the answer is to pull back strategically, go cold, manufacture their own distance as a countermove, and that's not what I'm talking about at all. Because here's the thing, avoidant people are actually measurably better than most at suppressing attachment-related thoughts from conscious awareness. The feelings don't disappear, they just don't reach language or behaviour, which means they can feel inauthenticity even when they can't name their own emotions. They can read yours better than you'd expect. So here's the real answer, and it's harder than any tactic. The thing that actually changes the dynamic, the thing that makes an avoidant person reach out for real, not just breadcrumb, is when you genuinely stop needing them to reach out. Not performing it, actually. There's research showing that avoidant people text less and respond more slowly to maintain a sense of independence, and anxious people, when they don't hear back, ramp up. So what you've got is two nervous systems perfectly calibrated to make each other worse. Your anxiety activates their avoidance. Their avoidance activates your anxiety. Round and round. Levine and Heller call this the anxious avoidant trap. Couples can stay stuck in it for months, sometimes years. The only exit is to change what your nervous system is actually running on, not your surface behaviour, not how fast you respond to texts, what you actually feel underneath. And I want to say this gently, because I think you need to hear it gently. The reason you're stuck in this loop probably isn't really about this specific person at all. Avoidant attachment develops from early caregivers who are unresponsive, unavailable, sometimes worse. Through those experiences, people learn that others can't really be trusted to show up. Their wiring came from somewhere, and yours did too. That anxious pull you feel toward emotionally unavailable people, the way this kind of distance feels so familiar, almost like home even though it hurts. That came from somewhere too. You don't heal the anxious avoidant dynamic by getting them to text more. You heal it by understanding why you keep ending up here. And this is the part most people skip. They want the technique, the right number of hours to wait before responding, the message that reads casual but communicates interest, the algorithm for getting an avoidant to lean in. But here's what I know from sitting with this a long time. Those techniques don't work because they don't change the thing the avoidant is actually responding to. They're responding to the energy underneath your words, and that energy, as long as your well-being is wrapped around what they do or don't do, will always carry a charge their nervous system reads as pressure. So here's something that actually surprised me when I learned it. Avoidant deactivation is driven by fear, not indifference. Underneath all that distance, research consistently shows the longing is real. They're not unfeeling. They're not a lost cause. They're someone whose capacity to act on what they genuinely feel has been suppressed so deeply they often can't even access it. The reason they don't call isn't, at its core, because they don't want to. It's because the wanting gets deactivated before they even consciously feel it. Let that sit. So when you genuinely stop chasing, when your energy actually shifts not as a move but as a real redirection back to your own life, something changes in the dynamic. Something real. The pressure drops. And when the pressure drops, the deactivating reflex has nothing left to push against. No engulfment to flee. No intensity to brace against. And in that quiet, in the space your absence creates, their suppressed longing starts to surface. Because now there's nothing suppressing it. Research on avoidant communication consistently shows they prefer minimal self-disclosure, brief messages, delayed responses, all to maintain independence. But here's what changes when the dynamic shifts. The independence they were protecting starts to feel less like freedom and more like isolation. And that slow dawning recognition that the space they fought for is now just empty. That's exactly when the phone appears in their hand. Not because you played it right, because something changed in you that was real. Now I want to be honest with you about what this actually looks like. Because I've seen this idea get twisted into a manipulation technique and I don't want to leave you with that version. When an avoidant person genuinely reaches out, the kind that carries actual weight, not a 10 p.m. hey stranger, It's because you became someone who wasn't waiting for them. Someone fully, genuinely present in their own life. Someone who stopped outsourcing their sense of safety to whether this person texted back. You can't fake that. You have to actually do it. And here's the part that surprises people. When you genuinely redirect your energy back to yourself, one of two things happens. Either they feel the shift and something opens, they become curious, they miss you in a way they can't dismiss, they reach out with something that actually feels real. Or they don't, and you find, to your own surprise, that you're okay. More than okay. Their instinct, when left to itself without the counterweight of your pursuit, is to reinforce the distance, unless something breaks through, and the only thing that breaks through is the felt experience of genuine loss, not threatened loss, actual loss. Your presence, warm, consistent, real, has value in their nervous system even while they've been deactivating against it, and they don't understand that value until it's gone. But here's what I need you to take with you past this video. Your goal can't be to manufacture the conditions that make them cool. That's still organizing your life around their behavior. That's still handing them the power to determine your emotional state. Your goal has to be to build a life so genuinely full, so rooted in your own sense of self and purpose, and people who are actually available to you, that whether they call becomes genuinely secondary. And I know how that sounds when you're in the thick of the longing. I know it sounds like giving up, like surrendering something you care about. It isn't. It's actually the only move that has any real chance of working, both because it's the only thing that genuinely quiets their deactivating reflex, and because it's the only thing that heals the part of you that keeps finding yourself here. Because the harm this dynamic does is real. You're not imagining it. You're not being too sensitive. It accumulates slowly, quietly, in ways that erode your sense of self before you even notice it's happening. So here's the one thing I want you to actually walk away with. The avoidant in your life might call, they might text. When you genuinely stop reaching, when your energy actually belongs to you again, they very likely will. But whether they do or they don't isn't the measure of whether you got this right. The measure is whether you become someone who could receive a healthy love if it showed up. Someone who stopped confusing intensity with intimacy. Someone who stopped treating unavailability as something to earn your way through. That person, grounded, whole, genuinely no longer waiting, is the one they miss. And they're also the one who finally gets to choose something better. Both can be true at the same time. Let that be enough.